So we are now fastly approaching the 1 year mark since Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack has been available to Nintendo Switch users, and in my personal opinion, the service has come a very long way since launch, and in light of the recent roadmap of games update at the last September Nintendo Direct, we now know of 27 games headed to Nintendo 64 library for the expansion pack, and in today's video, I want to revisit a data mine that you may or may not remember that hit after this service launched, and discuss what other games may be unveiled from Nintendo, as there is claimed to be 38 total slots in this service, and we need to go over some games that would be a very good fit going forward, as well as a discussion around what else the data mine really tells us in terms of Nintendo and their plans for the future of the subscription model and how many extra systems we may see added in, and we need to break down all the details right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as I mentioned, guys, we are discussing the current state of Nintendo Switch Online, what I personally believe Nintendo will do with the future of this service, and also a revisit to a very big data mine that hit shortly after this service was launched, as it occurred to me that in light of the recent Nintendo Direct that did take place, where we got the updated roadmap of the rest of what we will see in 2022, as well as a glimpse into 2023, and it is now at a whopping 27 titles that we know to expect for this service, many of which already being of course available, and other ones now slated to officially be headed this way. And what will be interesting to watch and monitor is whether or not Nintendo decides to keep to their traditional 1 per month schedule, because it does look that way if you look at the 2022 games that have been announced so far, providing that we get GoldenEye this year. We have Mario Party 1 and 2, as well as Pilot Wings, and as long as we get GoldenEye released in 2022, that is still 1 calendar game per month. When you look at the 2023 side of things, however, we know to expect Mario Party 3, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, 1080 Snowboarding, and Excite Bike 64. And one word that popped out in my mind when Nintendo went over that portion of the announcement is gradually. When they said these games will gradually be added into the service, that could be inferring just their 1 per month schedule, and that's what they consider gradual, and that's what I consider gradual as well. However, them going out of the way to clarify that and really only giving us 5 games to look forward to in 2023 that we know of so far could indicate something like a slowdown in the 1 per month cycle that we've seen them stick to so far, as historically they have done that with the other consoles once they've kind of matured and gotten a large library of games. And to kick off our conversation here, over on Destructoid, they do have the full list of every single N64 game that we know to be either coming to the service or on the service today, which totals out at 27. 1080 Snowboarding, Banjo-Kazooie, Dr. Mario 64, Excite Bike 64, F-Zero X, GoldenEye coming soon, Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards, Mario Golf, Mario Kart 64, Mario Party 1 through 3, Mario Tennis, Paper Mario, Pilot Wings 64, Pokemon Puzzle League, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2, Sin and Punishment, Star Fox 64, Super Mario 64, Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Wave Race 64, Win Back, and Yoshi's Story. And if you do read that list out loud, you realize, wow, that is a lot of great games when you look at the N64 library. And I do want to also talk about some games that aren't there yet, and Nintendo Life has a nice list of the top 50 N64 games that were released. Of course, this is their own personal opinion for whoever wrote the article, but I do tend to like to look at lists like this to kind of remember what were some of the hidden gems, or what were some standout games that could still be possibly added in. And we do have to go through and kind of scroll through this list, as the data mine itself, which we will first hop over to before diving into this portion, comes from Mondo Mega, and this tweet was originally released on October 25th, 2021, so shortly after the service went live, if I'm not mistaken. And what you can see here is the following: initial data mining from the N64 app is somewhat fruitful. Going by the game's IDs, there are at least 38 N64 titles planned for NSO. The list isn't alphabetical, so you can fill in some of the gaps already. 37 is Majora, 32 is Smash, 33 is Wave Race, 14 through 16 is Mario Party, etc. And what's funny is that when that list first launched, we didn't know if we would be anywhere close to this being a real thing and accurate, or maybe Nintendo created this, but it's all placeholders and it changes. But as time has gone on, we have actually seen a lot of this list fill in, and now we're at a point where we only have essentially 11 more games that haven't been revealed, if we are to believe that this data mine is indeed indicative of what Nintendo will ultimately build out the service to support. Now, he then quickly talks through a portion of, he calls it Mega Drive. Of course, I call it Sega Genesis because I'm here in the US, but it was Mega Drive over in the European regions. And now I don't want to focus on this portion, but beneath it, he says, and if you're still questioning additional Nintendo Switch Online platforms beyond these two, look at the first number of the game IDs for each platform. N64 is 3, Mega Drive is 5, SNES was 2. You can figure out what that means. And what he's referencing there is the fact that we have a missing number of 4, which is not available right now. And would that be something like Game Boy family of systems? I absolutely think that it is, and I do think that Nintendo is doing something very strategic with this service and providing us a slow drip feed of new games, as Nintendo at this point in time is viewing this subscription model as an ongoing, I think one day, Disney Plus / Game Pass style service where all of their valuable IP, not the new Nintendo releases, I think Nintendo sticks to full price releases and stays the course for the foreseeable future, and I don't think they're pulling a Microsoft Game Pass in that framework. I do, however, believe that they value their classic IPs and games that most likely won't get standalone full-on remakes. They want to have the opportunity to utilize nostalgia for all of the classic Nintendo fans that grew up playing these games and give us great classics with better visuals, enhanced online functionality, and all of the modern bells and whistles. And they want to use that as a justifiable means to get us to stay subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, which is a $50 annual price tag, and that is just pure revenue for Nintendo, especially when we're talking about their first party titles on the service. Granted, they definitely have to spend some money to get games like GoldenEye, as well as some rare developed titles that we will be talking about, but ultimately the subscription model is a heavy revenue driver for Nintendo, and they will want to stretch this out as far as possible, even into things like whatever is next in terms of next generation Nintendo hardware. I could see them letting us wait until next year at the September Direct for something like Game Boy family of systems, and then that's the big update for then. And we might not be talking about things like GameCube hitting the service all the way into 2024, 2025 or beyond, if they do that at all. And I do think one day we will cross that bridge with GameCube games being available on some type of service, but I do think that Nintendo slows out the course of how much they essentially front load the content for the service to try to justify keeping people subscribed. Now, to quickly pivot the conversation back to how they are going to keep us enticed with N64 releases, we have numerous titles, some of which I will just scroll right by. And of course, this is starting at number 50 and going down to the top 10. You will notice a lot of the top 10 are actually already on the service. And I do think Nintendo absolutely spent some time on basically trying to get some of the best iterations that they had to offer on the N64 era of gaming into the service as fast as possible, because they wanted as many brand new people to subscribe as they could. Turok 2, Seeds of Evil, NFL Blitz. There's some games on here like NFL Blitz that, as much as I would love to see it happen, I don't know about licensing rights. The WWF games, for the love of God, I would love to have both WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy on there. Don't think it happens. Org Battle 64 is one. I don't know if there's any red tape around that, but I could definitely see that coming back. WCW, probably not. It's the same thing as the WWF situation. Pokemon Snap, we already have. Donkey Kong 64. This is one that Nintendo would have to spend just a little bit of money on, but I do think that if that check was written to Rare, which they already did for Banjo-Kazooie, and hopefully they do for the sequel Banjo-Tooie also, and clearly they're working well hand in hand with Microsoft right now, I think we do have a shot at seeing Donkey Kong 64 make it to N64 on NSO. Continuing down our list, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is another one that has that similar red tape situation around it. I mean, I think we see those eventually re-released in different ways, like we've already gotten 1+2 remaster, but the soundtrack and what would have to be paid in order to maintain all of those original licensing pieces, it's just not going to happen. Pilot Wing 64, one that we already know recently to be announced for the service. Harvest Moon 64, I think that could potentially come over. Don't know of any potential red flags with that one. Rayman 2, The Great Escape. I wouldn't mind having the classic Rayman games back on the service. Granted, you have to think we only have about 11 titles left, so you do have to start to pick and choose which ones we might see. We do know Mario Party, Doom 64. Well, Doom's already really in every way, shape, and form highly available on the Nintendo Switch. Mario Golf, Pokemon Stadium 2, Sin and Punishment. These are all many games now, as I mentioned, as we get closer to the bottom of the list, that are already available on the service. Wave Race 64, a recent iteration. Mario Tennis, Mario Kart 64. We will run into more of the ones that we've already seen, because Nintendo truly did front load the service with some of, I think, a lot of fans in their minds, some of the best N64 games out there, period. And you have to remember, the N64 didn't have the deepest library of games. You also have games like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, same situation. WWF No Mercy, mentioned that earlier. We're not going to see games like this that have expired licensing rights that just probably realistically can't be renewed unless if there's a ridiculous amount of money involved, and I don't think Nintendo will do that. Resident Evil 2, that's coming over with the remake as a cloud edition on the Switch, which is beyond me. We just need a more powerful Switch. Hopefully it happens soon. Cloud gaming is not where it's at. Star Wars Rogue Squadron, would we ever see that? Potentially. Mario Party 2 also happening. Conker's Bad Fur Day. This was an interesting one. This and Perfect Dark both, as they have M ratings attached to them. I don't think that's necessarily off the table for NSO, but it's also not the most common thing, and this is also rare developed games, both this one and Perfect Dark. I think it would be a fan favorite and a huge one for me to go back and play also, but it is also a coin toss in my mind on whether or not Nintendo would bring that game over. One that I'm extremely hopeful we see hit the surface rather, with online play intact and co-op online. Diddy Kong Racing. This needs to happen. Why we don't have a sequel to this game? Granted, we did get one remade for the DS, but we need not only a remake, we need a sequel as well. I love Diddy Kong Racing, such a unique experience, and I would love to replay that on NSO. Banjo-Tooie, we already got the first game. Let's throw the second one on there. I think that's a likely one that can be in that final 11 that are still missing from the service. F-Zero X, Super Smash Bros. This is one that I think it's a no-brainer. I almost think it's guaranteed. In fact, in the data mine, it's insinuated that there's a spot, if you do the alphabetical thing, that it should be in there. And that's one that is not announced yet, but I think is a shoe-in for the service, and one that we should definitely expect to come over. And imagine Smash Bros. 64, 4 players online, the original experience. If Nintendo's doing that with the Mario Party games, letting us play online and have that original experience, even though we have games like Mario Party Superstars that really have those same kind of board maps and mini games in a lot of cases, I think they do the same thing for Smash Bros. Even though Ultimate is a thing, give us the original experience again for nostalgia reasons more than anything. Not to mention it just plays different, and it's a different experience at the end of the day. Perfect Dark, we already kind of talked about that. Paper Mario, Star Fox 64, every other game on the top of this Nintendo Life list is now confirmed. One that wouldn't have been if we made this video a little bit earlier is GoldenEye, but we now know that's coming with exclusive rights for online play for the Nintendo Switch Online version, which definitely sounds to me like Nintendo negotiated the deal with Microsoft to where they could release the game but not get one of the biggest marquee features that fans would enjoy from that title. And then 1 and 2, I agree with this personally. If just be my bias as a hardcore Zelda fan, I do believe that the best 2 N64 games are The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and ultimately The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, that I hope we get the 3DS versions either ported over and up-resed as a standalone combo pack. I would happily buy that. Or maybe one day we get from the ground up remakes for those titles again, because they are truly timeless and revolutionized gaming. But clearly at this point, we don't know exactly what Nintendo's planning with the future of the service, but a lot of signs point to slow drip feed continuous updates, as well as things like additional consoles. And I do think Game Boy and Game Boy Color, as well as Game Boy Advance, are highly likely to come to the service, but I'm not setting my expectations for that to be revealed anytime soon. I think that at the September Direct, the decision was made to continue the support for N64, hype up these releases, slowly reveal the next 11 games that we don't know to be announced yet, and add those into the service. And once that starts to taper down and slow off, and we're not on that 1 per month update schedule anymore, at that point in time, I think we see the additional family of systems ultimately revealed. But I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, all your personal thoughts and opinions on everything we discussed today. Do you think that the data mine has indeed told us that yes, 38 titles is what we should expect, and that is what will ultimately be added into the service going forward? Or do you think that maybe this data mine isn't entirely accurate and that Nintendo may go far past 38, Or do you think they'll maybe throw a curveball and actually ramp up to more releases than one N64 game per month rather than just the one? I definitely don't think that, but it is a possibility. And when do you think we will ultimately get something like a new family of systems update to NSO? And are you already ready for it? I know I am, but I do think we're going to have to wait longer. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.